What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. And in today's video, we are back with another episode of Lions Latest, where we go through the latest Detroit Lions news. Today, we have some roster moves that the Lions have made, and also we have an unofficial depth chart for the Lions before their Week 1 matchup against the Buffalo Bills tomorrow. So let's get it started.
Way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off, and we're going to stand up, and then it's going to take 2 more shots to knock us down. And on the way up, we're going to take your other kneecap, and we're going to get up, and then it's going to take 3 shots to get us down. And when we do, we're going to take another hunk out of you. Before long, we're going to be the last one standing.
Welcome, everybody, to a video. Glad you guys are here. We're back with some more Lions news. Excited to be back to talk about the Detroit Lions. Today, unfortunately, though, we do have some bad news, but we also have some good news for the player that we added today. I'm excited for him, and we have this unofficial depth chart that I just want to take a quick glance at in today's video. Nothing super deep. I think I'm actually going to bring it up when Rad comes on the show tonight for Last Second Dose. Yes, Last Second Dose is having a show tonight at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. That's what we're shooting for. Sometimes 8:35. You know, we kind of go a little bit, but you guys know what I mean. We'll be live tonight, so make sure you guys hop in, check it out. We're probably going to be doing call-ins as well once again. So if you want to call in, give us some thoughts, go for it, man. Hop on the show tonight, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, Last Second Dose. So I'll probably throw up this unofficial depth chart at some point there where I can get his initial reactions to this. But we got a few things to talk about today. And I think we have to start off with the roster moves first. When I saw this update today, I can't lie, it did hurt a little bit. It was like, oh man, like you hated to see it. You really did. You knew it was a possibility because this player was missing a lot of time. He hasn't been here in over a week. So there was definitely a possibility that something like this went down. And then when it finally happened, it was like, dang, I mean, I had such high hopes for this free agent signing. That's not to say that he can't come back, because he could end up back with us. Maybe if everything gets figured out off the field. We still don't really know what he's dealing with as fans, but we know Dan Campbell described it as a personal issue. You guys know who I'm talking about. All right, let's not hold it back. You know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about Quentin Dunbar, the cornerback from Seattle last season, before that with Washington, that has been released today. Wow, man. And I was actually contemplating buying this guy's jersey. I'm glad I waited a little bit, because I thought that'd be cool having a number 1 Dunbar. I was excited for the signing. The guy was a stud. He was coming off the surgery. I was like, oh yeah, this is going to be a great deal. This is an absolutely great deal. And then he gets released with the fact that he was unable to show up to practice for Lions. And they know what he was probably dealing with or what he was going through. I don't know what that was. We don't know as fans. All we know is personal issue. They said they were talking to him. They had communications with him. So they probably knew what was going on there. Hopefully everything is okay on his side. And like I said, potentially you could possibly land this guy back, because he's going to be available as a free agent. So maybe the Lions could bring him back if everything off the field does get figured out, went out and signed a different position. All right, so let's talk about this a little bit. Quentin Dunbar is coming from Seattle, where last year he had a pretty bad season. He was coming off a fantastic season 2 years ago with Washington, where he ended up getting traded to the Seattle Seahawks. I mean, he was outstanding. The guy played in 11 games, 4 interceptions. He's one of the top cornerbacks in football by really any stat you looked at. You like Pro Football Focus? How about the second highest graded cornerback in football? The guy was fantastic in 2019. He gets traded to the Seattle Seahawks. He was on the final year of his deal. And really, after that Seattle season, it was kind of looking for, okay, I have a big year here, and then I can go land a monster deal. But that didn't happen. With Seattle, it was kind of a mess. And it really started off in the offseason when he and another player was arrested for an armed robbery. Apparently, the charges were dropped to the beginning of the season with the Seattle Seahawks. He was going to be their top corner that year, but apparently, reportedly, he came in out of shape. He didn't look so good. He did start as their top cornerback, but he was also playing through an injury that season that he continued to play through a little over half of the season, until Pete Carroll was finally like, hey, man, look, you got to go get healthy. You got to go get right. This is not good. And they played him through it. It was a really bad season when he was on the field, but you could just tell he did not look the same as he did a year before with Washington. He looked much slower. You could tell he was playing through an injury, and Pete Carroll acknowledged that he was doing that during the season. But that's why I was excited, because I was like, man, he was injured last year. If he comes in, we are able to avoid some of these off-the-field issues, and he's coming in healthy, like an Okudah coming off of surgery. This could be an outstanding deal for the Lions. A guy on a 1-year cheap deal has an opportunity to go ball out and then earn a big deal with someone else after this offseason. For us, we just got like a bargain. I mean, this was just a steal. This releasing for the Detroit Lions, they have now lost an experienced outside cornerback, okay? A player that, yes, was coming off an injury, was getting back healthy, and he was coming off a rough season with Seattle. So we weren't 100% sure what we were going to get this season, but he does have experience. Now, after him being released, we now lack a ton of experience at the outside cornerback position. But the good thing is that the Lions did this early. That's the good thing, is that making this move before we get in a preseason means we have an opportunity to move players around, see where they fit best, see how these young guys perform, because right now we have a lot of young guys in that secondary, not even including Okudah and Amani. I mean, behind that, whether it's Jerry Jacobs, AJ Parker, this is an opportunity for them to get to evaluate these guys and see where they fit best. But one of the most interesting pieces has to be Michael Ford. Ford's one of the most interesting guys because we've seen him in the past playing in spurts for the Lions. You know, he was playing mainly an outside cornerback role for the Lions. He played in spurts. Probably the best moment had to come against Kansas City when he filled in for an injured Darius Slay, and he played pretty darn well. And heading into this training camp, we were looking at saying, well, maybe there's a shot that he becomes the Lions nickel. I mean, we do have Corn Elder, but he could compete with Corn Elder for that nickel spot. Going to pretty much every day of training camp, I've seen a guy in Michael Ford, and I know it's just training camp, but play at, to me, just another level. I mean, the guy looked phenomenal, and he basically just took that role from Elder. Even before the injury, he took the starting nickel inside cornerback role from Corn Elder. He was that guy for the Lions heading into this season. But now, after losing a player like Quentin Dunbar, losing some of that depth on the outside, it's going to be interesting to see if Mike Ford's one of those players that they experiment with a little bit through preseason. I definitely would. I would see how he performs and how they think he performs from the outside and the inside. Because, yeah, we've only seen him really play inside like this through training camp, so you have to see how he performs against other teams, but also on the outside as well. You know, give him reps at both. Mike Ford can be an outside cornerback that has experience, and he played well there. We're comfortable with him. Then it's not as much as a, hey, we got to figure out what we're doing at the outside cornerback position because you have a guy in Ford that can slide over, take that role. And now that you've went out and signed Nickel Roby Coleman, who, by the way, gives you basically no versatility whatsoever to slide out and be an outside cornerback, and you also have Corn Elder, who's dealing with an injury right now. The young guys, whether that's Jerry Jacobs, AJ Parker, or Iffy has been playing a lot of his snaps as a big nickel. Not really on the outside, on the inside as the big nickel in sub packages. But that's where the Lions have been using him. They have been using him much more on the inside. So again, we know he has the versatility to play on the outside because he did back in college. So he's a player you'll have to experiment with a little bit and see where you like him up better. But it seems right now the Lions like him a lot more on the inside. And then, of course, you got to see how Jerry Jacobs performs on the outside. AJ Parker performs on the outside. Alex Brown, you know, you got to see how these guys go out there and play through the preseason. And that's the good thing, is that we did this early enough where we have a chance to move players around, see how they perform, and then decide how comfortable you are heading into the season. If not, then you have an opportunity and a lot of time to still make something happen, whether that's free agency or whether that's making a trade to go pick up another cornerback. Obviously, that possibility is there because you have cap space and you also have draft picks. I don't know if the Lions want to do that, and they probably wouldn't want to give up a lot, but I'm just saying it's always a possibility, and as we get closer to the season, these things will start to become available even more. Not even just trades, but of course free agents, because roster cuts are coming. So you're going to see cornerbacks starting to come available. Where it's light right now because every team is filling their roster, it will start to, you know, fill up a little bit. And then the Lions will have an opportunity to potentially go sign someone or bring someone in for a workout. Corn Elder definitely seems to be in a very vulnerable spot right now. I mean, you have Corn Elder when we get to the depth chart. He's listed with the 4th team, which is interesting. A lot of that could have to do with the injury. But if you have a guy like Nickel Roby Coleman, and through the preseason, even though I don't know if he's going to play Friday because he's, you know, still just kind of working by himself, but whenever we get to see him, if they're sold on him, obviously Brad Holmes has a back row with him, Aubrey Pleasant does as well, and they're like, hey, he could be our inside guy, and you like Mike Ford's ability to play outside and inside, the Lions could see a guy as Corn Elder potentially, you know, someone that's expendable, someone that they could release, because then base situations, or not even base situations, but when you need one inside corner, you could throw Ford there. If you need another outside, you could put Ford on the outside, potentially put a guy like Roby Coleman inside. That could give the Lions some flexibility to maybe move on from a guy like Elder. So he'll be very interesting to keep an eye on so far. Hopefully he gets back and healthy though, because I don't like seeing players get released just because they can't get on the field. That always is the worst. You guys have a similar question that I kind of thought of right away, is why didn't the Lions just go out and sign another cornerback today if they were going to release Quentin Dunbar? Why wouldn't you just go get a cornerback instead of signing a running back, who we're about to talk about in a second? And what I'm thinking is what happened here is because the cornerback position is so light, schematically, players that they liked, maybe there just wasn't that piece out there, that guy out there that they wanted to give an opportunity to with the roster spot open. And there's nothing wrong with that because, again, we don't need to do that right now. Why go sign a cornerback just for the sake of signing a cornerback just because you release one? If there's no one that you really like and you actually are giving a legitimate shot to make the team, there's no point in actually signing him. So the Lions went out and signed a running back, which is a position where we're dealing with some injuries right now, and probably a guy that they, want to give a legitimate shot to and that they actually want to see. If there wasn't a cornerback like that on the market, it would have made no sense to just go sign someone to sign someone. I don't think that ever makes sense. And again, because they have time, now they can look at these young guys, really focus on them for at least this game on Friday. Then after this game on Friday, even, they could start to make a decision and figure out what they want to do. Whether that's, hey, we saw, let's see him another week. Hey, we got to go bring in a different cornerback. Once cuts start coming in, we're going to see cornerbacks starting to come available. And then maybe someone that they have their eye on pops available and they give him a deal. They bring him in. Lions roster is going to get open. Spots are going to come open as we go through preseason because they're trimming down their roster anyway, just like anyone else. I'm excited for Friday to see guys like Jacobs and AJ and, Iffy, because they flashed. They flashed for sure. So I want to see how they play against another team. And I think that's what the Lions want to see. And Dan Campbell realized this. He's talked about it. It's different when you're in training camp versus when you go out there and you're in a game situation against another team. Some players, they rise to the occasion. They're completely different. Other players, that they're the complete opposite. And that's not good, but you got to know who those guys are. So we're going to figure that out soon with a lot of these young dudes. Hey, who is that guy? Which one of these guys are going to go out there and step up? And if these corners step up, you might be good to go. If not, the Lions then know, okay, hey, we got to go figure this out. And even if they would have signed a cornerback today, probably wouldn't have played on Friday anyway, just like the running back that they signed today. So the Lions went out and signed running back Craig Reynolds after yesterday signing another running back after releasing Michael Warren II, Javon Leake. Today they go and added Craig Reynolds. I would be shocked if this guy plays tomorrow. I mean, I don't know how fast you can get him acclimated, but I would be really shocked if he got on the field tomorrow. To give the Lions credit, I like their constant focus on the running game, making sure that they have a good backfield, making sure they keep bringing in pieces, keep adding competition. Because even if this is something where down the road this guy gets cut, but the Lions say, hey, we need a running back during the season, he's available, and they can go look back at the film for preseason and say, hey, he played pretty well in our scheme. He could be fine. We go add him for some depth, sign him later because you already got to see him fit in this offense. That would be very beneficial. But I like how the Lions are not getting stagnant. Like, hey, we're good. I know it's going to be pretty vanilla. I know it's going to be stuff that the players know. But, man, one day without even going out there with the team, I would be super surprised if he played. I'd be surprised if Javon Leake plays. If this guy plays after being here for one day, coming back out of a Division II college, he's only 25 years old. And I think it's called Kutztown. I don't exactly know how to, you guys know I can't pronounce things. But this was a running back that spent time there for 5 years. It's a Division II school that has put out a couple of NFL players. The most popular one being receiver Andre Reed. I know him from Madden personally. I'm just going to be honest here. Someone actually got drafted from them back in 2017. So they've had a couple of players in the NFL. And it's never easy for a D2 player to make it into the NFL. But he says, this is a dream and I'm just going to keep working for it. And now he's here with the Lions. And he's actually had a little bit of experience in the NFL. He's not a complete blank slate. He kind of is, but not completely. Because he started with the Washington football team in 2019, picked up as UDFA. We got to see him through the preseason in 2019. Unfortunately, 2020 didn't have a preseason, so we didn't get to see him then. But in 2019, we saw him through the preseason, played in all 4 games. He had 28 carries for 80 yards. It wasn't, a great stat line. He also had 2 receptions. But we'll get into that in a second because that's really the only film we have because I really don't have college film on this guy. I couldn't find any. He spent time with Atlanta and most recently Jacksonville in 2020 where he actually suited up for a couple games. He's had some special teams snaps. So there is special teams ability here and I'm sure that's something the Lions also looked at because they do value special teams a lot. He's played in a couple of games for that reason. But at Jacksonville, he also did have 1 carry against Chicago which went for 4 yards. Okay, that's solid. I mean, I don't know how much I can gather from that, but I see you. Coming out of the draft, this was a 5'10", 212-pound running back that ran a 4.54 40, 35-inch vertical, and 19 bench press reps. Since then, I think he's bulked up a little bit. He's listed at more places as 225, so I think he's definitely put on a little muscle. When you watch one of his running style, it does seem like a guy that could bulk up a little bit because he really runs well between the tackles. I mean, most of his carries come between the tackles, and that seems to be where he finds a lot of his success. And again, it was kind of tough to gauge because there's only 28 carries in the preseason with Washington to watch film on. I couldn't find film back in college. However, statistically, I could find his numbers. Whoa, he had some numbers. I will say that. He had 3 school records. 2015 was his first season playing. He redshirted as a freshman, so he's there for 5 seasons. His first season playing game in 2015, rushing the football, he averaged 6.1 yards per carry for 182 yards, 2 touchdowns. But he also actually debuted as a slot receiver. Now that's important because he has a lot of versatility because of that reason. When he asked to describe himself, he said the 3 words that describes him: number 1 is versatility, number 2 is athlete, number 3 is playmaker. Number 1, versatility. He's got a lot of versatility. Punt returns, kick returns, receiver, running back, can play a lot of different spots. Debuted as a slot receiver, a guy that went for 12 receptions for 115 yards. And by the way, he had a lot of receptions throughout his career, so you know he can catch the ball. In his second season, in 2016, he became kind of the go-to guy at the running back spot. And in 11 games played, on 6.4 yards a carry, nearly 1,200 rushing yards for 14 touchdowns. 2017, only 4.2 yards per carry. It was only 8 games played, so it pushed his stats down a little bit to 456 and 4 TDs. And his final year was 4.8 yards a carry, 823 yards, and 15 touchdowns. He has a school record for touchdowns, school record for most rushing yards in this game, and a school record for the most scrimmage yards in a game. He also has over 1,500 yards receiving back in college on 147 receptions. He's definitely a pass-catching threat. So if you're wondering about that, don't wonder about it. Now, he didn't do it a ton of the preseason, but they did use him on passing downs. He specifically played in the fourth quarter with Washington. They didn't really put him out there because obviously they go about through their depth chart. They put him out there on the fourth quarter a lot. That's really saw him play. Mentioned the fact that he can kick return and punt return. Now, kick return right now, his numbers even in college weren't that crazy where it's something that I looked super deep into. And the running back that we signed, Javon Leak, yesterday, I think he actually may have more competition to this room than this running back does. But I also look at his ability to punt return. That's something that you don't see a ton from running back, to punt return, kick return, and play receiver. You don't see that a ton. As a punt returner, on his career, he averaged 11 yards per punt return. Now, I know this is not really a fair comparison at all. However, on 36 attempts, 11 yards per punt return throughout his career, that would be top 10 in the NFL last season for any punt returner that had more than 5 attempts. Top 10 in the NFL. Again, it's not fair. I'm carrying Division II to the NFL. But I just wanted to give you some kind of number perspective there on what that actually means. That's pretty darn good. And that ability is pretty darn impressive, okay? The guy had career 46 touchdowns in college. That's pretty darn wild. So he undrafted, even though he had those great numbers, a Division II player. And like I said, you can't really find that much film on him. And so I went back and I watched the 4 games that he played at in the preseason. And I took a couple of notes. The thing I took away is that he's a very patient runner. Sometimes to a fault, he is that patient. That was actually one of his knocks, is that he needs to get through his reads quicker as a running back, but he is extremely patient. And it wasn't that often that you saw it lead to bad things. I would say there's a couple times maybe he could have been a little bit quicker with his decision making, but at least for these preseason games, again, it's not against starters, he's a very patient runner. All right, he does not just run into players. I thought that really stuck out to me because he kind of slows the game down for himself when you watch him. He plays a little bit like he's in slow motion, but it allows him to hit little seams and creases in between the tackles that you can't even see. Now, there is no all-22 for preseason, which is sad. But from the side angle, you can't even see the holes that he can hit sometimes. I didn't see him break a lot of tackles, even though that was something he got credit for coming out of college, was that he broke a lot of tackles. He probably did, considering his numbers, but you didn't really see it when you looked at, at the NFL film. He didn't break many tackles there. He's definitely a red zone threat. Then you talk about the receiving ability, and you have to give him credit there because he can definitely catch the ball. This comes back from more to college, but a guy that can line up at slot, it tells you that, yeah, he can catch the football. So there is some versatility there. Now, 225, I don't expect to be lining up at slot very much. Maybe even a Jamal similarity here because he can catch passes and he's a little bit on the bigger side for a running back. Pass blocking, I thought this would be better considering how much receptions he has. I thought, he'd be pretty good at this. He talks about it, but in these games, it didn't look great. There were a couple solid reps. He's definitely got enough bulk to stand up a linebacker that's rushing, and you see a couple good, signs like that. But sticking with people, getting in front of rushers, that's very questionable at this point. There was a couple of misses that I saw that would have led to sacks. Realistically, I think this is a fit for the scheme that we're looking for in terms of rushing the football. A guy that really his strengths come from vision and patience, balance. He can cut from one side to another, hop back and forth without slowing down, falling on the ground, slipping, anything like that. Keeps really good balance at the same time, keeps himself very square. So I think those 3 things will really translate to a zone rushing scheme where it's less on explosiveness and bursts and, being able to beat some guy one-on-one, because in the NFL, he hasn't done a ton of that. It's more for him based on slowing the game down, vision, making the right cuts, being able to cut back, tie that into back with what he did with college, playing out of the spread, pistol, shotgun, things like that. You can see, okay, I could see how this would work. It's going to be a little bit of an experiment, but you could see how this would work based on what his strengths are as a player. Or to maybe a little bit like a Jamar and maybe even a Javon Leak a little bit as well. And it looked very crisp in terms of his pass blocking, but again, keep in mind, this was back in 2019. He could look like a different running back 2 years later. I don't really know what he looks like now. He does have special teams experience in many different ways, whether that's returning, coverage, whatever it may be. I view him as a guy that definitely could be a red zone threat. A guy that could leak out, catch some passes. If he can improve in terms of pass blocking, that could help as well, especially off of play action. But he has the size to do it, to run into somebody. We saw that multiple times. Back in college, he played an RPO style of offense, so I thought that was interesting. Maybe they signed him today to walk through, because I'm sure the Lions are practicing. Maybe they signed him just to walk through some RPO stuff. I doubt it, but maybe utilize him like that. I like him as a red zone option, though. We go to spread, things like that. I like him down there. I think that's where, we'll probably see him if he's in the preseason a ton. Credit to him, too, to really stick with the team as a UDFA. He was called in basically for minicamp, and only 5 players got signed with Washington, and the offensive coordinator was impressed. They kept him around for the season. There's potential here. I don't know how long he'll be on the roster. We'll see. But the Lions signed a running back that I'm sure they wanted to see. I'm glad they didn't just sign someone just because, hey, we need a corner, let's go get one. Like, no, let's if you don't love the guy, don't get him. So that's what the Lions did. They must have really liked him, and they picked him up. So welcome to the squad, Craig Reynolds. Welcome to the squad. And also, hopefully everything is okay with Quentin Dunbar. Hopefully we see him back on the field sometime soon with whoever. I mean, I would like for it to be with us, but, sometime soon with whoever. And, wishing him the best of luck going forward, whoever that may be. I had high hopes for the guy. I was excited to see him this year, but, unfortunately, sometimes things just happen. Now, I quickly want to share this depth chart with you guys and just kind of show you some of my takeaways from this. This is an unofficial depth chart put out a couple of days ago, so it's not super important because, we're going to get to see on Friday where guys are at. But I just thought it was interesting, some of the little notes I took from this based on what I've seen at training camp. The first thing I had to point out was the linebacker position. Notice that Tavai is listed as the second-team linebacker at will behind Jamie Collins. That's what I've seen in practice too, so that's not actually a huge surprise. But it might be a big deal considering his chances to make the team as a linebacker. That might be a pretty good sign that he's at that spot. But it doesn't really matter because he's going to have to prove it through preseason anyways. And then also you can see that behind, the Mike linebacker, Alex, is Sean Dan Hamilton, who has shown out a ton throughout training camp. But that battle is going to live on through preseason, and I think it's going to be so fun to see tomorrow who steps up. I know somebody's going to step up in that room. Who is it going to be? That's the question. Now, you see a guy like Barnes super low here, and that's why this doesn't matter too much because Barnes ain't going nowhere. Like, he's not going to not make the team, and he's going to play on Friday. We're going to see him then. But he's just low on the depth chart, which it does make sense. You see a guy like Cephas who's higher than St. Brown, even though St. Brown has been our starting slot. Expect him to be a starting slot this season as well. A little note that I took away from this. Cephas, I think he probably makes the team. However, St. Brown's been our starting slot. So it's just an interesting note here. But you notice Khalif Raymond is with the second-team wide receivers. That's actually no surprise. Khalif's been absolutely balling. So I'm 100% with that. They see the Bolden on the third team. And then with the fourth-team receivers, Sage, Allison, Ratley, Jennings, those guys. And there isn't too many surprises here. There's a chance that none of these guys actually make the team. But I think the guy that sticks out throughout all those guys, probably Sage. And also Jennings has been making some plays. And also keep your eye on Ratley. He's been missing the last couple of days. So we'll see what happens there. Also, I took away the offensive line. Notice that Logan Stenberg is on the right guard. That's where he's listed. He's moved back and forth a little bit throughout training camp so far. They're listing him at right guard here. Behind that, they have Kramer on the third team offensive line, which has pushed Boehm to the second team at left guard. Chad Hanson is with the number 3 team receivers. He's pretty squarely on the bubble. Like he might be like one of the first 4 out, first 4 in, like if we're talking college basketball. That might be where he's at. I think he's growing a connection. Of course, he has that background with a guy like Jared Goff, which helps him, I think, as well. But I think, you've also seen some guys trust him. Sage and Chad Hanson have grown some trust between some of these backups, specifically, Tim Boyle. The ability to just take shots up to him. Like, when you throw it into double coverage, that means you have some trust in the guy. When you throw a jump ball to Darius Jennings, you have some trust in that guy. Sage Surratt, the amount of targets he was just purely getting. So there's trust in some of these players. Alize Mack right now is the third, Brock Wright the fourth. Those two guys listed on the same line. That makes a ton of sense. Those seem to be kind of where they're at. Tight end battle should be fun, but Mack does seem like he's going to get the third tight end spot if you're asking me. And if we keep 4, I think it probably will be Brock Wright. We have released Jake Hausman. Charlie Taumapau, though, he ain't going to go down without a fight. Dan Campbell praised him, but he also said, hey, he's super, basically said he's super raw. He's super young, and he's trying to figure it out. On the defensive line, you can see Levi is far down, but just like Derek Barnes, he's going to make the team. Levi's going to be on the team. But notice Cornell, how high Cornell is listed. That's a credit to how well he's played throughout training camp. I know he's suspended, and that makes it tough to make the team. No question about it. However, you got to give credit to how he's played throughout training camp. He has played pretty well. He's made some plays. He seems to always make a few plays. And even John Kapler, when we were live, he said that guy stuck out to him through the Family Fest. So he's been making some plays. It's good to see him back and healthy this season. I'm just excited for all these battles, to be honest with you. Also, the running back position, of course, Jermar Jefferson, the 3, Dietrich Mills, the 4, in my opinion. But because you see God Kabinda listed with the 4 string, be interesting to see how that changes, because Kabinda may be listed here, but I think there's a very legitimate shot that he makes it. However, Mills has given you no reason to believe that he can't. And of course, Jermar Jefferson, I don't think he's going anywhere. Hopefully he gets healthy. Cornerback spot, you see a guy like Corn Elder listed with the 4th team as well. Obviously on an injury right now, so that could have something to do with it, but he's listed with a lot of these young cornerbacks. So Elder seems to be in a weird spot. I don't know. We'll see what happens with Elder. Like, are the Lions going to keep him around? That'll be a really interesting thing to see. If they're bought in or sold on what Nickel Roby-Coleman could do, the Lions may be someone that the Lions end up releasing. Kind of comes full circle then with a guy like AJ Parker, his versatility with the Lions. Either the cornerback spot should be one of the most fun to watch after this release, to see who is the cornerbacks going forward. How many of these young guys do the Lions keep around? I'm excited to see that. And I had to bring up Tommy Kramer because he's been missing the last couple of practices, and now Evan Boehm's listed ahead of him. It looks like there's a very good shot he's going to have to beat out either Evan Boehm or Logan Stenberg for a spot on this team. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'll probably share this with Brad tonight, get his thoughts. Again, we'll be live tonight on Last Second Dose. Thank you for watching, and I'm out.